A pleasant good morning to everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of the Carlos Brown Show. As always, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Today's guest menu looks like this. He's the Director of Athletics at Southern University. He'll stop by and talk with us at about 10:15-ish. Coach Roman Banks. Of course, a lot to talk about as far as athletics at Southern University and athletics in general in this conference. And, the last month I've been visiting with the Director of Athletics at the institutions in the conference, and we're going to do it once again this week. Then after Coach Roman Banks, Coach Van Pettaway. We always look forward to talking with him, get his perspective on the world of sports. And then following Coach Van Pettaway, of course, Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. And I gave him an assignment a couple of weeks ago, but I am the one that's going to shoulder the blame because each week we don't talk about that. And as the point guard on the show, if I can use that term, I got away from what we were supposed to talk about, or at least one of his homework assignment, and he's ready. And that is simply, in his broadcasting career, his top 5 players in Alcorn State basketball history from his perspective. On what's trending, Shaylin Pillow named the new head women's basketball coach at FAMU. She'll be the new women's basketball coach, so we definitely will try to talk with her eventually. But congratulations on the hire. She'll come in, hopefully hitting the ground running. Also, this week has been a very, very troublesome week. Of course, we talk about one virus, which is COVID-19, the pandemic, and now we have to think about another virus that's always been here and has peeped up again. That's the virus of racism. George Floyd, life taken away in Minneapolis, Minnesota, by the police department, and it just. And if I could, let me explain it this way: it's like having a sore. It heals, but then it doesn't, because then the scab forms, right? And then it'll let you know it's still there every time you bump it. Then sometimes there's an infection that gets in there. You have to go in and get the infection out, drain. And at this point, and I thought about my father who passed away last June. It's coming up almost on a year now. I had to talk with him maybe at 10 years of age about when you get older and you get in a situation, here's how you deal with if you get stopped by the police. And I think each and every one of us that are black, African American, brown people, you know what I'm talking about. You get that talk. Whether you're male or female, you get that talk. So this thing has reared its ugly head again. And then I put down a note, and I had to look it up. Humanity. What is the true meaning of humanity? Humanity, here's one definition, is the human race, which includes everyone on earth. It's also a word for the qualities that make us human, such as the ability to love and have compassion, be creative, and not be a robot or alien. So you got to love each other. And to my people, we got to start there. We got to love. If you can't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. So stay strong. Continue to fight. Continue to fight. Coming up on today's show, of course, Roman Banks will join me at about 10:15. Coach Van Pettaway and Charles Edmond. Let me say good morning to Dr. Prince. Dr. Prince, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, sir. How are you this morning?
Well, I'm doing okay. It's just living, trying to make it, surviving. All of those adjectives.
I think you're going to make it. I think you done made it thus far.
Oh yeah.
Why can't you make it a little bit further? You remember old James Cleveland? I don't believe he
Mm-hmm.
brought me this far to leave me. I don't feel no ways tired.
Mm-hmm.
Then we used to
And
sing,
some.
we sang another one. Say, I've been running for Jesus a long time. I ain't got tired yet. You remember that, man?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have to
Yep.
have some choir rehearsal or something where we could, I got a tambourine. You know how to play a tambourine?
No, but other instruments, yeah.
Okay. What other instruments you play?
I think. Well, it's been some years. I'm a former musician, so
Well, go
I
ahead
need
on.
practice.
Boy, you've been hiding stuff, huh? We're going to have to
Well, it's
put
been
a
a
band.
it's been a long time. It's like, well, I used to could play basketball all day. I
Well,
used to could
hey,
do
hey,
this. I
well,
used to could do that. What's the key word? I
used
used
to.
to. Yeah.
Oh man, you know what? I'm gonna make you laugh, man. Um, I tinkle on the keyboard a little bit, enough to get in trouble. I could fake folks out. They think I can play a little bit, right? And but I've always loved the wind instruments. My son plays the saxophone, alto sax. Both of my sons play the sax, and the other one play drums. But you know an instrument that I play, man, and I do pretty good with it. I play a wazoo.
Hmm.
I play a wazoo because I just never could. I don't know. I didn't do or pay attention to the chords and all that kind of stuff. But I play the wazoo, man, and I keep right on up with it. I do some music around here all the time, but it's all
Well,
good.
they say everyone has a talent, and you have to use them.
Hmm.
And if you can use them, you'll be okay.
If you say you don't use it, you lose it.
Oh, well, yeah, that literally can spread out over several topics on that one. But yeah, yeah, absolutely right. But I'm, if I can, I'm looking forward to talking with Coach Banks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Had an article, and I pulled it up in the Advocate. If you guys want to kind of look at it, and it says Southern AD Roman Banks says Jaguars athletes return to campus not likely until at least July. And of course, you've seen the news where voluntarily athletes can come back to respective campuses. Even you see some news in the conference. Jackson State, Mr. Robson talked about welcoming back the student athletes, and the conference as a whole. They're going to back everything up. But it'll be interesting to talk with Coach Banks and just kind of get his perspective on what's been going on, because the last time I talked to him, you didn't have all this, the pandemic and what have you. But now it's here, and every day, I have a conversation with somebody via social media or what have you, talking about, will we have sports in the fall? If we do, it won't be the same. And we've been having these discussions for a while here. And when you look at it, some people have already made their decisions. Some have to make their decision because of health reasons and what have you, that they're not going to be able to do it. Some have made the decision they're just going to wait. And so if you're a director of athletics, you have a tough situation. I mean, I could think of daily it changes. And then when you look at schools like a Southern and the Grambling and Jackson State that don't have the resources like the big schools, then of course it's going to affect them differently. So it's going to be interesting. Some have decided just to sit it out. I mean, for fans, they just can't take the risk. Talked to a couple of people this week. They basically said they're going to shut it down. They'll still pull for their institutions, and they'll look back at this next year. This time next year, hopefully it'll be a situation where it's more concrete.
The term that stands out to me, Carlos, is, and I'm not trying to diss anyone, is fool's gold. That's what sticks out to me. And we did a show this week talking about the hidden message. The NBA just canceled the Hall of Fame, which was scheduled for August. And they're going to push this thing back to 2021. Okay? The NFL, not the NFL, but the ESPN, CBS Sports, Fox Sports, they have all agreed with the NCAA to hold back on releasing game times, dates, and key matchups. They usually do that June 1st. They're holding back on this stuff. But yet, and it doesn't matter, you read one half of the country's newspapers and the other half, and each one is going to say, we're not going to have it, we're not sure, or we are going to have it. It's three different coins. Last I checked, the coin only had two sides, which in between the lines is all wishful thinking right now. It really is. And we keep yo-yoing with kids and fans. We're going to have it, not going to have it, not sure we're going to have it. And then people are going to get burned out after a while.
Well, you can control what you need to do. If you know it's not a good situation for you, you know what to do.
Absolutely. It's a no-brainer. Slam dunk.
Mm-hmm. Now, I put the information out there, and you decide. That's why I've been talking to each director of athletics to see what plan they've got going on, how they're going to address it. And what I've gathered from everyone is it's still unknowns. It changes daily.
There is no plan.
Right. Well, the plan is that we just don't know. It's a flexibility thing. You can ask them today, and then tomorrow something could change.
Well,
but Dr. Prince, they're going to try to have it.
Well, I know they're going to try to have it because there's too much money at stake. But once again, we won't see that money. That we will not see that money. That money is going to stay in the Power 5 sectors. You know, Texas A&M stands to lose $109 million if there is no fall sports, in particular football. $109 million. That's what they're going to lose. They're going to lose 35 to 40 million alone just from the TV deal. So that's why they're feverishly, saying we're going to have this, we're going to do something. When John Sharp from Texas A&M Systems said, we all 11 schools in the system going to have it. And everybody else said, yeah, we're going to have it, we're going to have it, we're going to have it. But you can't afford to have it. Our money is made differently. Our money is made through students, enrollment, and ticket sales at the gate. And if in Prairie View's case, you can only hold 15,000 and you reduce that to 25, 30%, then that's 4,500 people. And that's not, and if you talk about the bands and all that kind of stuff, and all that, it's reduced to even less than that. So you're going to lose money. Then the added additional costs for sanitation stations and extra cleanup help and all that, you'll lose more money than you'll make. You'll go in the hole.
And testing.
Yeah, testing, masks,
and that's going to be multiple times. And all of that sounds outstanding for the Power 5, which, quite honestly, I don't give a damn about them. I mean, I'm sorry. If they're going to lose 30% or 40%, oh, that is so tough. My concern is more of our schools.
Uh-huh.
And so when you do that, who's going to pay? Who's going to pay for the testing multiple times? And then for any plan that you have, what plan happens if somebody gets infected, and then they've been around for 40, 50, then your season it could be a stoppage anyway. So I just put the information out there. I can give my opinion on it.
That's why it's called the Carlos Brown Show. You're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah. But so with that being said, I've got 10:15. So I'm going to take a quick time out, and then we're going to transition to get Coach Banks on, and we'll go from there. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
One voice. It can get the point across, but it only carries so far. Add a voice. It's richer, louder, but that has limits too. Add a third voice. It's even more powerful. Add another, and another, and many, many more. And we are stronger than ever. That's the power of a community coalition. They help community groups, faith groups, civic organizations, PTAs, employers, and many others in your community organize their resources and focus them where they're needed most, like fighting to keep kids away from drugs. Ask a group that you belong to if they should belong to a community coalition. It's easy to get involved. Visit helpyourcommunity.org and they'll tell you exactly how your group can help. That's helpyourcommunity.org, because you get more when we get together. Brought to you by the Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Ad Council.
Chris, can you put the video game controller down for a second?
I can talk and play. Oh, I'm totally annihilating this punk kid in Nebraska.
I just feel like you're not acting like a grown-up in our relationship.
Him too.
Well, you still ride your skateboard to work, there's the comic book collection, the race car bed.
Look, I'm young at heart, but I put money into my 401k every paycheck. I picked up a few savings tips at feedthepig.org. I have control of my financial life now, and that feels pretty grown up.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. For free ideas and easy tips on ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
So, I bet I look like a grown-up to you now.
Well, except for the footy pajamas, I'd have to agree.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Before I bring in my guest, which will be Coach Roman Banks, here's a quote that will kind of lead us into this conversation. Bringing our student athletes back will most likely depend on when we can open the campus back up for housing and meal prep. The best thing for us may be if some sort of vaccine or treatment to lessen the risk is available. The well-being of our student athlete is our top priority, and there are still things we need to do to prepare for that. That was a quote from Coach Roman Banks. Coach Banks, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Carlos. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm trying to stay safe. How about you and your family?
Trying to stay safe, man. We know that we dealing with an unknown, and so it's best to stay in the environment with you and your family, and be cautious and take heed to the state leadership about, what we need to do when we go out and not gather around and congregate without being social distancing with masks.
Yeah, absolutely right. And Coach, I know being a director of athletics is always tough. Now throw in this pandemic, this COVID-19. And I started off with that quote to bring you on. It's about the safety of the student athletes. And that is going to be just an ongoing situation as far as bringing students back and then having the proper things in place to need for them.
Right.
I know you would agree with that statement.
Well, I made it. So obviously, that's my sentiment. We had a AD's meeting. We have them often, but we was on a call the other day, and that's my sentiment to the group. I think that we have to realize that we're not dealing with apples to apples or oranges to oranges. When you start talking about the level of our playing field versus other universities, as for instance the Power 5 and the next 6, or however you want to say it, as it relates to the money that you can throw at this pandemic, and then also as it relates to our socioeconomic dependency and who support us and who support them, and so what our fan base look like, and all those things. I think it's important that I continue to put that ahead of all cost. And, this get about like open up the economy about the dollar. And I'm not motivated to put any student athlete at risk about a dollar, because obviously we don't generate millions of dollars from TV or radio. And so even with that being said, if we did, I wouldn't put their health above safety.
Visiting with Coach Roman Banks, Director of Athletics at Southern University. Appreciate the time as always, Coach. So, athletes returning, in the article you talk about return to July or later.
Exactly. So go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I did, and that's a soft date. That's not anything hard or concrete. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm in a position to, even though I'm excited and I'm ready to get sports started back, because I think it plays a huge role in our society. And I think that our student athletes, are excited about getting back, and our coaches. But we're a little older and we're a little wiser. I say that all the time about, for example, my kids, about how to handle this situation. They think they're resilient, and obviously as parents, we have to try to make decisions and help them understand this. And so those 18-year-old and 19-year-old student athletes will be excited to come back, because they're at that age where we thought we were resilient and nothing can happen. It's still upon my leadership to be the wiser mind to help us navigate, to protect them, even to protect them from themselves, as excited they may be. And so that's a soft date. Obviously, the head coaches all play a role in that, and we often have conversations. And so there's a lot of things that has to take place to protect these student athletes. I.e., for example, bringing them back. We online for this summer, so how we haven't even got the understanding of how we're going to handle our meal preparations, even for the fall semester. Being that we plan to go back, if we go back, we don't. There's no housing for the summer, and we're still planning about how you social distance and housing, and so we don't have the dollars to give them a stipend for meals every month of $1,000 or more. We don't have the stipend to give apartment stipends $1,000 a month for them to live in apartments. We can't pay for testing every week, and so these are just talking points that I'm throwing out there. A lot of things to talk about as it relates to bringing student athletes back. And so let's be mindful. And I often say, if you're going to bring student athletes back, there's a long list of things that need to happen. Can Southern University Athletics provide those things? And as of right now, we can't provide all those things monetarily to keep them safe. And so we have to make sure that we have navigated a structure that we feel good about, that can keep our student athletes safe and healthy, as it relates to the upkeep of their meals, as it relates, give you an example, the weight room. You can only have so many per square footage in the weight room. And then in the weight room, you're talking about keep it clean and sanitized. And then you're talking about some things only being personal use that you have to buy, maybe some other dumbbells and things like that. And so, that costs money. And it's not just a spray and wipe down with disinfectant. And so there's a lot of things that has to take place. You're talking about the training room. You're talking about after you have an ice tub, an ice bath, what you have to do. The other one can't get in there anymore. You got to sanitize that and put another one in. And when you're only dealing with 2 ice tubs and all those things, and then the chemicals that it's going to take, and then the procedure that it's going to take to create people coming in and checking out, there's a lot of there are things that needs to happen. And I just don't know. I'm sure that the public, I don't have a concept of what I'll have to go on behind closed doors, but it's a hard thing to navigate through. And then when you don't have the resources to add to it, it makes it even tougher. And then now, so you have to depend, in my statement, we need science and medicine to help us out, that can lessen the risk of our student athletes when we bring them back. Other than that, I just don't feel like at this stage that we have the resources to safely protect our student athletes, coaches, and fans, and all as it relates to getting ready to bring them back to school and having a game day environment.
Coach Banks, and I can feel what you're saying, because now speaking, I guess I'll take on from the aspect of, the fan that loves sports. What you just said, we don't really think about that. Some of us do, but it's more about getting out on a Saturday night and Saturday, and it's entertainment, it's fun. But how you just put it, the average fan doesn't think about that. Right. And even before the pandemic, behind the scenes things that have to be done, insurance, there's a liability issue I'm still trying to get an answer to, as far as when they come back. And from a political standpoint, Coach, there's a move across the country to say, hey, we got to put something in place so no one can sue if they get it from coming, even from a business standpoint. So I know that opens up another can of worms, but I guess my point is, to what you were saying, you don't think about all of the things that have to take place. I got a list now of what have to, and this is from a sports lawyer. Their organization: self-quarantine, water bottles, handshake, celebration, cleaning, disinfecting, healthy practices, all of kind of what you were just talking about. It's tough, Coach. It really is tough. Coach Banks, would you, how can I put this? Would you feel better if the season was delayed for sports in the fall to maybe the spring? If things are better?
I'm an advocate of just from a structure standpoint, football is important, basketball is important. That's from the NCAA structure as well. Those are great revenue builders for athletics. And I know that it's important to try to have football and basketball foremost. And so I just feel like that at our level, let's talk about our level. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't get any, they were talking about trying to play a game, testing and staying in a hotel, keeping teams apart and no fans. Southern don't benefit, and our level, period, low resource institutions don't benefit from playing in a stadium with no fans. I mean, obviously, where that come from. That come from trying to play and get TV revenue. We don't get $10 million from TV. We don't get $5 million a game from radio networks. So that's not to Southern University advantage to rush a season to just to play to get revenue. That doesn't work for us. And our game is all about bringing people together, pageantry, the bands, excitement, tailgating and hanging out. That goes against, all social distancing rules anyway. And so that even if we played football and right now you're talking about the social distancing rule for your stadium, we was out the other day doing our seating chart. It wouldn't be no more than 4,500 to 5,000 people trying to get into our stadium. And so that means right now, by that calculation, basically our season book holders will have first right of refusal, and we would not even sell game day tickets. And so that means that we have to do a lottery system for students to come in. That means that the band will be, we won't allow the regular number of students that the band usually bring in. The visiting band won't be able to come. Visitors won't be able to come. And so, you're talking about just take away from your whole ball game as relates to what is all about the experience. Just to have a game, and you don't get any revenue from that at all anyway, and you put student athletes at harm and at risk. And so I'm not inclined to that. I'm inclined to say, let's play if we have to. Obviously, we got our start date on regular schedule. We already know as time go by, we're not going to be able to start on time. And so it's looking like the first 2 or 3 games may be out the one day anyway. Mm-hmm. And so you're saying, let's look at the second option, starting in October. Maybe we'll get a little help. And you put your schedule together for October, probably going to be an all conference game schedule, and a shortened version of the schedule at that point. And then my request is, if it can't happen in October, there's no medicine, there's no help for us, no vaccine, then let's buy ourselves some time and let's start our season as relates to in the spring. Now, obviously, you say, well, you got a lot of sports in the spring. Well, something got to give anyway. I mean, this is not a typical year. Just like we finished out last year where baseball and softball was restricting, something is probably going to be restricting. And I'm talking about football. Just think about volleyball and soccer and cross country that starts before that point. And so something is going to give, and we can't treat this like it's an everyday equal opportunity year. We got to make some tough decisions of what we can do, what we can't do. We got to say, okay, we might have to sacrifice this for that, and whatever that may be when we make those decisions. But I'm all for pushing the football season back to the spring. And I think as time goes, and teams at all levels start looking at these costs as it relates to trying to perform a game and keeping student athletes safe. And you spend this money and still put student athletes at risk. And so my question to the group is, okay, we do all these things and it's an outbreak because you can test them. You and I can get tested today and go get the virus tomorrow, even though, you're trying to do the things by quarantine and all those things. And it's hard to keep young people away from doing some other things that ordinarily going to the dorm and sitting down. And so, would you rather risk that outbreak and an opportunity of failure to life and you still not really gaining anything as it relates to having your football season, because there's no reward monetarily about the dynamics, the way that you're going to have to play the game anyway. So I'm saying, okay, because we don't have these resources to throw at it, let's push it back to whatever one of those 3 options fit us best to start. And I'm saying to start, that means vaccine, medicine, all some of these things in place that lessen this risk by science. That's for sure. And then let's play our game, which will probably, to my liking, to my understanding, it'll probably be sometime around October, November to the springtime anyway.
Interesting. Visiting with Director of Athletics at Southern University, Coach Banks. People are weighing in. Coach Banks, and I'm trying to incorporate a kind of a question based on what you just said. Edwin from Dallas says, but has some things come to light that will have to change in how we operate? That's a question. For example, will alums need to start helping to fund something that didn't previously exist or replace a source of income that will no longer exist? Will alum have to kind of pitch in now. We've always said they need to help out, but now even more so now.
Yeah,
with the
pandemic. It's a greater need
mm-hmm.
For philanthropy giving. And even though we have other things set up by joining the Jags Unlimited, that means you can go and get, some gear and different things like that that's on our website by joining Jags Unlimited and the S Club and all these things. But it's going to be more inclined for our alums to help. And I know we're speaking about athletics, but possibly the university as well right now, because this is going to set the university from an athletic standpoint. It's going to probably take us 2 seasons, if not 3 seasons, to even catch ourselves back up with the loss of revenue. We missed our first 2 football games. You're talking about somewhere between $750,000 to $1.2 million that we can lose in revenue. You're talking about that basketball don't play preseason. You're talking about somewhere between $500,000 to $750,000 just by showing up. And I'm talking about no ticket sales and nothing doing anything that averaging to our budget just to make it for our whole athletic department. And so even the larger schools are calling on their alums to give. And obviously, to me, when we come out with our ticket structure, it's going to be helpful that if you're not a season ticket holder, that's a way just to buy season tickets, just to invest into the apartment because the monetary need is there. And I know we probably gonna get into some season tickets. What are we doing? But those type of investments going to have to be made, and making them now will help us for the future. But right now we're looking at being 30 to 50% behind budget anyway.
Wow. And that's why I've read some information from Director of Athletics that's saying that this could be deadly for low resource schools. It really can. This pandemic, how can they survive? Will there be some casualties?
There will be, no question about it. There will be. I know that all of us are prepared to petition the NCAA for waivers. They voted not to give blanket waivers because the NCAA still want to protect themselves. And so individual universities and conferences going to have to stand up to the NCAA and apply for some different type of waivers, maybe even going under sports sponsorship. There are a lot of schools that had 18 sports and over the minimum that's now dropping down to the 15 that have already forfeited that season. Obviously, the thing about it still costs because you have to keep your student athletes. If you're going to go back and next year, you have to keep them on scholarship and stuff like that. So, but there will be some that won't be able to make it, especially if it's no type of resources and alums are not helping buy into this tough situation. And so, for us, there'll be some challenges. We meet the sports sponsorship right there at the nose. So we don't have the luxury right now of saying we're going to suspend this or that for no reason, because you got to have the number of sports to stay Division I. And so, so we know that there is some challenges for us in that area. But you also, I think, look at how you help yourself playing the minimum number of contests instead of the maximum number of contests. You make sure that you can change your travel policy a little bit, and everybody's going to have to sacrifice. It's not the same old, you go overstay, probably get two. If you're going to get 2 games on a trip, then you need to maybe some back-to-back games now to help stabilize ourselves. So it's a lot of budget things that's going to be changed up to try to make this happen. And you have seen that some schools, the California system already not playing in the fall. You've seen some other smaller conferences, they not having conference championships, as well as eliminating some sports sponsorships on their campus, and then they conference totally that they agreed on as a conference. So you can see there's a lot of things start to unfold.
Visiting with Coach Banks, Director of Athletics at Southern University. Dr. Prince had a question. Dr. Prince?
Yes, sir. Coach, I know you're in a tough situation right now, and you've been having meetings with your fellow athletic directors. My question is, and you kind of answered it with your last statements, with the way things are shaping up, no doubt you're going to have to start doing some reductions. I know in Prairie case, they did 20% reduction of budgets. My question, and then I have a follow-up, is how close are we to not eliminating the sports, but some of the staff that support those sports? And then is this the time you would think to go and renegotiate? The Power Five wants to do their thing, and we renegotiate with the NCAA and lowering the amount of sports needed to be declared as a Division I program. Are there any things like that in the makes?
Well, you're talking about that. That is a challenge from the conference office. And I think our commissioner is doing a great job when you start talking about the council, the NCAA council have already, there's no going under sports sponsorship unless you can come from a conference perspective. So there's no individual case right now as it relates to that. Here's the thing, that the NCAA is still holding standards. And they're still holding us accountable. Now they're listening to arguments as a case to waivers, and they are giving those on case by case basis. And so schools that for example that have cut those sports, they have not gone on the it did not need to go to the NCAA because they did not go under sponsorship, the numbers sports you need to have to be Division I status. So that did not have to make it to that magnitude. They just made a decision to cut back on their campus. I think, and you're asking me, are we to that point somewhat of reducing staff, anything to that point? Well, we have looked at that. And obviously, we're waiting on the budget from the state to be approved to get our final numbers. But we have really been, our salary levels not the top in the league. Matter of fact, we're in the middle, and we've been that way because we have been able to stay under our state allotment of salaries as it relates to the staff, full-time workers, and being able to come under that. And so I still think we've maintained that we don't have to get to that point. But to give you an example, we may have to look at that. Let's just say, for instance, if like right now, this summer, we're online. And so there are no fees as it relates to athletics coming out of students' tuition. But we base our allotment, our budget on fall, summer, spring. And so that $300 to $500,000 that we would have got from the student fees for that goes to our budget. So we are in the deficit for that even this year. And so let's just say we don't get a chance to come to school in the fall. And so there's a possibility right there of just the fall alone, $2 million or $2.5 million that we won't be able to get. Now you start making some very, very tough decisions as it relates to staff, as it relates to, do you cut scholarships? Now you have to make some tough decisions because you're talking about the unexpected, as we already know that our state budget is as you follow what's going on at the Capitol, going to be cut somewhere between 50 and 30%. And so these numbers, as we get them, is going to really determine what happens for us as it relates to making decisions.
And with that part, and we talked about the leaning on the alumni to be able to support and come through. Are there any models being at least sketched out now that you can roll that out? Because we know what's obviously coming. And I did a little simple deal. I was ranting about something. Carlos probably could remind me what it was. I'm always ranting about something, Coach. But if we get 3,000 people, just not just one institution, but just that support SWAC athletics, 3,000 people that would give $300. That's a $900,000 surplus, and I equate that to the funding that's received from the ESPN Celebration Bowl. Stuff like that, and then whatever we can do. And I know it's tight on everybody, but if this doesn't prove the difference between the haves and the have-nots, even though we only take up 14% of the population of this country, we spend over $1 trillion as a body of people. And we got to be able to tap into that. And hopefully the powers that be in the AD chairs can come together with some type of model that can be spread out conference-wide, nationwide, if need be, to help tap into some of this funding that is already out there.
Yeah, so basically you talked about something that's starting from a conference level. I mean, from a conference office perspective, when you start talking about asking to give and then do some type of disbursement, just like we get our funds, like you said, from Celebration Bowl, just like we get our funds from the NCAA and some of the other things that it goes to the conference disbursed it out on a formula. Then you got some academic enhancement things that as certain formulas and you do well, you're able to get certain things. And so a little bit more, a little bit less than other universities. And so I think it's two-pronged. I think that we have to do that creatively from a conference perspective. But our job, my primary job, is to kind of create that environment from my campus perspective. And that I know that's gonna benefit Southern and help me make those decisions so we can see it in real time, so we can help ourselves make decisions. And that's the reason why those type of tools that I called out to you and mentioned earlier about the JAG Unlimited, we getting ready to have another give day and all these things, our Jagathon that we give and raise money for. That's the reason why these tools going to be important, because our primary jobs as ADs is to take care of our campus, and our secondary job is to work with the conference office and let our commissioner lead the charge in some things and help put that together. And so I'm more inclined to answer your question to help our campus. We working all together, but I need to be more inclined to be concerned about doing those type of things you talked about for my campus for Southern University first.
Right. And that's what I was, saying. I know collectively you got a model and we copycat each other anyway. So if someone has a model and this is what we can execute and each sister school adopt that in conjunction with what's going on. And I'm looking, like I said, I was playing with the numbers in my head, $50 a month with 25 going towards your school, 25 going toward your conference. That's $1.8 million. I mean, almost $2 million there, Coach. And I think that could help. That's a start. And it's not the Power 5 money, but it's a show enough a heck of a start.
Yeah, in a little bit for us, the membership and for Southern University, any funding helps at this particular time. Ain't no question about that. I think that you said it. You see the case now. If nobody never sees before, the divide between those that have and those that don't have. And I want you all to understand there are some schools that's not considered historical Black universities and colleges that are struggling just as bad as we are. And so you're gonna see some of them. I mean, you look at California school system. as it relates to what they done about, the fall. They did that because they're struggling. And so, and they also did that because most of them don't have football either. Football is a whole nother dinosaur, because we know that really football, you don't really make money from football. You kind of put yourselves out there to catch yourself up. Only schools that make money out of football were 10 Power 5 universities, as you look that up, and LSU is one of them. But also, I want to make sure that we understand that all universities are funded differently. I think that our structure is about state dollars and about student fees and about other generating like ticket sales, and the money that we can raise go into our whole formula. And that's the reason why you see schools like us and Grambling in our league that's behind as it relates to the structure of budget in the conference, which Southern used to be number one, but that's when they had 10, 12,000 students. And and that's when the state was allotment before they started decreasing students and cutting back on education was very, very high. And so we had more money back then than we have now, with more dependency. And so what Texas revenue looked like, because they into the Prairie View is in the A&M system, they cost is different. They don't have to look at it and just they student fees may not really matter because their budget is so high. I think they something like right at 14 million, 17, somewhere like that. And so, there's a whole lot of different structures as it relates to the way the states do it. And so right now, like I told you earlier, we don't know, because we all know that we are down here at the Capitol and they working out the budget right now, which some schools have already in our league know where they're going to be so they can plan a little better.
It's going to be interesting visiting with Coach Roman Banks, Director of Athletics at Southern University. And listener want to know, with enrollment being a source of dependable revenue, has the university been able to even forecast if our enrollment will sustain, fall off, or rise? Probably unknown right now. Correct, Coach?
Yeah, it's an unknown. It's an unknown. But as the commentary of it right now is that we don't anticipate our numbers being what they have been. I mean, over the last few years, I think we was right at 7,000 students. Over the last few years, they've been rising. But I think COVID is going to set us back. And I think for a lot of different reasons. I think some people are hesitant because if it's not a cure out there sending their kids off, they may just want to do something online. I think as it relates to even our structure, what we're going to be able to house on campus. You got to think about it. Let me give you a scenario what I'm saying about that. We have dorms where kids share rooms. Well, under this COVID-19, it goes against all the regulations because they're right there and they sharing this environment. That I come from one place, you come from another. Well, that's probably going to be out the window. That double space is probably going to end up being a single space. And so you even got to think about that our housing on campus is probably going to be cut in half. And so if that's cut in half, then how do you continue and what's the game plan to say students that don't have that space? Okay, you got to get an apartment now. The apartment may cost a lot of money, and the family may say, well, we'll just wait. And so these going to be a lot. These are the type of factors that probably is not talked about. That's gonna weigh heavily to what's going to happen for all of us, because we don't. I'll be looking for that piece of how many students are full time, because that's very important to our budget. And so that's why I'm saying the anticipation is that that's going to be 20-30% less.
Yeah. And Coach, once again, appreciate the time. We could go on and on. And I just want folks who listen, some know but some probably didn't know. Playing on Saturday nights and stuff, that's fine, but you're in a pandemic. Things are going to change. You don't see the things behind the scenes. I mean, I know a little bit, but just listening to you, and I'm getting people texting me saying, "Preach, Coach Banks, preach," because, and it's not to be glorified because of that, but it's because we don't think about these things. And and I'm saying all this to say this, Coach. Then, by the way, I was going to talk about APR. You know, had a couple of hurdles that you have to overcome, but for the most part, pretty good. You still have to do your daily diligence as being the director of athletics with your staff.
Yeah, that's still it's no, they're not cutting us any slack.
Right.
And we had the end of the semester and kids go home, they don't have laptops. And obviously, you know, all our sports did well this year as it relates to our APR score. What I'm excited about, what we're able to do, because most of our kids come to school for in-class instruction. You know, we don't have all the time the better type of students, so we have to work harder and make sure they go into class where we have to walk into class. We have different study halls that we have to make sure they're in, and the coaches can physically help us with that. And so you're talking about going online, you're talking about a challenge for us, and just a challenge. And look at the socioeconomic level where our kids come from. Most of them didn't even have laptops or anything like that. So for them to go and produce the type of numbers that they did, I'm excited about it, because that was I was very concerned about that, and especially when we don't get any type of break from the NCAA. You still got to make that. You still got to make that progress toward degree, in which, and I can talk about that, in which we did. So I'm excited about that, and I'm thankful for all the coaches.
Yeah, you know, great. Because you think about 6-7 years ago, and from where the department has come from back then to now, and I'm sure that there's a plan in place already, and with the cross country and the track and field, it's going to get better. I believe that.
Where that goes back, and see, I don't think that was justice. I mean, people just look at that and say, "Oh, they failed." No, they didn't fail. That happened when the university failed. That's all the way back to 2015 that we've been fighting mitigating circumstances. They've been able to go, and because of COVID, they're saying that, well, y'all missed your opportunity. Y'all mitigating, y'all used it. And see, we did not use it because y'all ended the season because of COVID. Now, I can fuss and fight about that all day long, which I'm going to do with the NCAA, because that's not fair. It's not a student athlete that's on campus that had anything to do with 2015, and it's not a student athlete, any human being had anything to do with COVID for us not missing out on our mitigating circumstance waiver. And now you want them to be penalized this year. But I'm not going to rant on that. I'm going to keep on going, and I'm going to deal with the NCAA about that.
But you know, Coach, but you have a right for this forum to do that, because see, again, we don't see behind the scenes what's going on. So there's the explanation of that. Yeah, fight it. Yeah, and
hey, let them keep on fighting. You got 2 more minutes to the top of the hour. Let them keep on fighting to the top of the hour.
That's 2015 when we knew we had to make a change. That's when the NCAA came in and destroyed us, and we still fighting a fight that none of the student athletes had anything to do with. And if you look back at our scores the last 3 years, we have been one of the top at all level as it relates to our APR scores. And so you talk about handling you a little different because of the way you look. Well, we get into that, and I tell them that all the time. Y'all can hide it if you want to, but it's real, it's live, and it's living, and it exists.
Interesting, because last week I had Ms. Williams from Alabama State in the men's basketball, but she said, "Yeah, but let me explain," and she kind of went into the numbers previously. You know that the members on the team now didn't have anything to do with that.
Right.
So
that goes all the way back when we got this unusual data ban, and then we met the benchmarks for the mitigating circumstances, and COVID came up, and we didn't did not have a chance to use it, and now they saying that our opportunity is out. You can't use it 2 years in a row. Well, you didn't give us a whole opportunity because we didn't have a whole season. And so these things, these are type of arguing points. But I would say this, is that fall off next year, I don't have to fight that battle because we're on our pure numbers, and that'll be behind us having to deal with that. And that's basically for all our sports, because you know that they took the retention point from everybody when they came and put us on this unusual data band. So your score is going to be low. And so we go back now, just to give you a little note, there are schools that's gone back, and we have heard them say and seen them say, well, we with other universities that don't look like us, well, it wasn't made to hurt no one. If you can prove that this kid was majoring in English, but you got him in math, and we can tell by his transcript that's the way it's going, then we'll help you out. That's been censored. And guess how many points we lost because in the athletic department they was in English, but in the register office they was in math. And they just took our retention point, but now they helping other schools now because if you can prove that. But they didn't give us a chance to prove that. And so, you know, we was the I think the school that they use in those situations to create their policies and procedures, and then you really give us the opportunity to do what people are able to do now. And it's still hunting us right today. But I'm still dealing with that, and I'm going to deal with that. And our teams, once again, like I tell the coaches, we're going to beat them hard. We're going to go the long way around. Our APR scores are good. Those scores are dropping off, and we won't have to deal with that one way or the other. No more, no more, no more.
Well, continue to fight. And so there is a process that you can take with the NCAA, correct?
Yeah, that's a process that we are through the conference office as well that we are working on to try to mitigate.
Okay. Well, at this point, 10:15, 11:02, Coach. Like I said earlier, we could go on, and I wouldn't dare ask you about future schedules like I always ask about because it's just not important right now. You understand? Hopefully, all of this will be over someday, eventually.
Someday, and hopefully, if we go a while longer, then you really gonna see some of us shutting down. But let me say this to you, and I real quickly put it out there. I know I've been emailed and asked and about all season tickets, and we're gonna come out with some information on our website here very, very soon, and we're gonna give people some options because as COVID is here, you see things change every day. And so being that I don't know the starting point of the season, and nobody really does, we don't know if we're going to play in the fall or if we're going to push it to the spring. We don't know what the future holds. We know what we're going to have some deadlines that we're going to try to make if things are safe enough for us to play. And so we'll put that out. And as it relates to that, we're going to give our season people that want to be season book holders going to have first opportunity, because I can tell you now that, and you probably heard it all over as it relates to pro teams and all that our stadium is only going to be able to hold, at the end of the day, about 5,000 people. And, we've been fortunate to have that number as season ticket holders. And so I want people to be mindful of that. I want people to understand that as you invest into your season tickets, it won't be the same, because I know you're thinking about you used to sit in section G, seat 1 and 2, but seat 1 and 2 probably going to be seat 1 and 3 once we put social distancing in place. And so it won't look the same. Some may have to move that was on the home side on the other side, so we can put social distancing and these measures in place that we're required to have in place. And so just be mindful of those things. And we're going to have that laid out as you buy your season tickets, but we are hoping that you continue to buy them and make that investment, because we do need the resources, and we're trying to be as fair as possible. There'll probably be no tailgating, and we're going to speak to that. There's probably going to be, RVs but we're gonna be mindful when you and that's only for season ticket. You got the only way you can get that is to be a season ticket holder. So those things gonna be tied into it because the landscape that has changed with how we used to do it at Southern and wherever we go about socialization. All that's out the window for this season, and hopefully it can be gone after this season. And so it's going to be a lot of structural changes. I just want people to understand that.
Yeah, and you know what, Coach Banks, appreciate you for coming on and giving out the information, because that's something we all have to look at. It's not going to be normal. And
not at all.
Continue to be transparent, put the information out there, and people will judge themselves accordingly. They'll make their decisions. We'll have you on again real soon. Kind of just give me an update of what's going on, and this platform is always available to you to
I look
get the word out.
Once we put our season ticket stuff out there here in the next couple of weeks, then I look forward to coming back on and we can talk about that.
All right. Well, stay safe, you and your family, Coach. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and once again, appreciate the time that you've given me on today's show.
Jaguar Nation, stay safe, social distance, wear your mask, and go Jags. We're looking forward to getting back together soon when it's all over.
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Coach Roman Banks, Director of Athletics at Southern University, coming on, spending some time with us. It puts things in perspective. And, and I even had someone say, stop being a party pooper. If you don't want to go, you don't have to go. That's correct. That is correct. But you just put the information out there and you decide. You heard what Coach Banks has talked about on today's show. The student athlete comes first. Things are not going to be normal. Season ticket holders, they'll get first crack at this. It's going to be reduced crowds. The band, the tailgated. He just stated it. He just talked about that. Hopefully, 2021, it'll be different. It'll be in a better way. But this situation now, you haven't had to deal with this before to this effect. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Going to take a time out. When I come back, I'll visit with Coach Van Pettaway. He's the basketball analyst for the Carlos Brown Show. It's always a pleasure to talk with him. And during this break, you kind of still soak in what Coach Banks talked about. In a couple of weeks, in about 2 weeks from today, I'm scheduled to have Dr. McClellan to come on and kind of give us an update from the conference perspective. Be back after this time out. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
President of the SWAC Alumni Association. The SWAC Alumni Association is an organization founded on December 10, 1999 at the Sheraton Hotel in Birmingham, Alabama. Its mission is to serve as a rallying ground for individuals who have made the Southwestern Athletic Conference the illustrious conference that it is today. Its membership is open to former student athletes who played in the conference in any sport, as well as to coaches, athletic administrators, staff members, game officials, and fans. Annually, the association holds a Legends Awards and Roast Banquet or luncheon where it honors individuals with Lifetime Achievement Awards, a Chuck Prophet Wackenmaster Award, and occasionally a Distinguished Service Award. Proceeds from that event help to finance degree completion scholarships for student athletes who have exhausted their playing eligibility at SWAC universities, but who may still need an extra semester or two to complete their college studies. For more information on the SWAC Alumni Association or to get information on becoming a member, you can send correspondence to SWAC Alumni Association, 875 Miller Creek Lane, Newport News, Virginia, 23602. The email address is SWAC Alumni Association at yahoo.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the next 7 years of bigger and bigger enrollments, America's grade schools will need nearly 250,000 extra teachers besides those to fill normal vacancies. This great need, plus the growing public interest in education and improvements in schools, make elementary school teaching a more rewarding career than ever, a career that high school and college students should certainly consider. Education holds America's future, perhaps your future.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Guest number 2 of today's show is Coach Van Pettaway. Coach, good morning to you.
Good morning, Carlos. Good morning to everyone. I'm happy to be here.
I was going to ask how you doing. I know you're doing well, but you and the family.
Well, everybody's fine. Everybody's fine. We're blessed. We're safe, and that's the important thing. And we're healthy.
Yeah. Safe, being healthy, and love one another, our people. Yep. We've got to get back to that because, of course, I know you've seen what has happened, as far as in the news.
Right. Nationally, that's tough. That's tough, Carlos. But we've got to get past that. But at the same time, and when I say get past that, we've got to move on. We've known for quite some time that there's a big discrepancy when it comes to people of color and how they are being treated. So I know the cause is there, but I don't think we need all the violence, the rioting and that kind of thing. I think stepping up and showing that we're not going to be quiet. That's one thing, but the actual violence where we're destroying cities and each other, I don't think that's a good thing right now.
Love one another. Love ourselves.
Yep.
Speaking of love and basketball, again, this pandemic has really filtered down to every aspect of living. And now the NBA kind of decided about some things that they're going to do. They're going to try to bring the season, they're going to add the playoffs in and the kind of seeding, some of the situations I've seen, 1 through 16, and irrespective of what conference you're in.
They got 2 or 3 models out there. Yeah, they got 2 or 3 models out there. That's one of them. But I think whatever they come up with, I think the players are going to have the last say. So I think they're supposed to be voting. The owners are supposed to vote Thursday on resuming the season in whatever format they're going to go with. But you still got players out there who have some apprehensions because we're still dealing with the unknown.
Yeah,
and some of them, in some cases, they're going to be separated from their families, and then they're also talking about maybe bringing their families to this one site that they're talking about having everything. So there are a lot of unknowns out there. And then I know as a player or as a coach, I would still have a lot of problems right now because see, we don't have a vaccine. You don't have a testing mechanism in place that can give you immediate results because you can test today, Saturday. You can be negative today, and then by Monday you could have something because you come in contact with somebody you didn't know about. You can do all the social distancing and all of that, but you still could come up with something because there are too many unknowns. They don't know everything that's triggering this virus, and that's going to be tough. And then you see where the different conferences have, even the SWAC has said that they're going to resume, going to let the institutions come back, but they still have to follow their local guidelines and the national guidelines. Well, that's going to create a uneven playing field because some schools will be able to open and invite their athletes back, whereas others will not. They're not all coming back at the same time. So there's going to be a competitive advantage for some schools, and it's going to put some schools at a disadvantage. But my biggest thing is, what about the health aspect? Remember, I told you all a while back that my biggest concern was, will our schools be able to afford what is actually necessary for sanitation, for keeping our athletes and coaches safe? Will we be able to afford all of that? Because you got to remember now, we were already running on select budgets. Now you're adding another cost in that you had no way of knowing that you were going to have to add. So where's that money coming from? We had the pandemic is destroying schools. I'll give you an example right here in Huntsville. University of Alabama at Huntsville, which is a Division II program, and it's a minority school. Their president came out and said, we're going to drop hockey and our tennis programs. Now, he did that maybe, I think, Wednesday of last week, somewhere along in there. You know what those alumni did? They said, no. We don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen. So he said, okay, you got 5 days to raise $750,000 if you don't want it to happen. Guess what? They raised more than $750,000. They did that for hockey now. For their hockey program. Now, there's a Division II school, but hockey can only be in Division I, so it plays on the Division I level. Those alumni got together and raised that in about a matter of 5 days. Back when this thing first hit, I told you all, this is the year that our alumni have to come together. The alumni of all HBCUs, they got to step up. They got to step up and help make up the difference for what the virus has caused all of our schools, our institutions. We got to be able to give this year for some of our schools to survive. If not, we're going to see some programs drop. They're going to drop off big time.
Those who can give, who can.
Right.
Because I understand your point, and I'm looking at the picture. Over 40 million people. That's some of us.
Right.
That furlough, lost their job.
Right.
So they're not going to have any discretionary dollars. To your point, we just had for almost 45, maybe 50 minutes, Coach Banks, Director of Athletics at Southern University. When you talk about testing, resources, they don't have it. Now, he's talking about Southern, but think about schools on our level. You know, some are a little better off than others in the conference.
Right.
We'll let you chew on that one. We don't have to give out names and what have you. But those are resources. Now you got new things you got to budget for or to put in the budget. Testing, more than once, multiple times.
Correct.
I mean, this pandemic, this virus, man, it's some schools are not going to survive.
Sanitize it. I mean, you look at the game of basketball. You got to share a ball. How you going to prevent? How am I going to prevent my players from infecting each other when they got to use the same basketball? If we're doing any kind of drills or now it's going to come down to individual drills because you can't do team drills because that ball has to transfer between players. We don't wear gloves in basketball and football. They can at least put on gloves. But in basketball, you're not using gloves. So it's going to be tough. Can the virus be transferred from that basketball to another person between players?
Well,
there are so many unknowns, man.
Yeah, uncertainties. How to mitigate liability risk by common sense risk management practices, Coach Pettaway. You've heard some of it. They talk about hand washing, healthy practices, cleaning, disinfecting sports facilities, self-quarantine. Coaches, players, parents, or spectators with any symptoms should not attend any training sessions or competitions. How about water bottles, Coach Pettaway?
Right.
Water and sports drink jugs should no longer be provided by sports facilities. All sports. Okay. Wait a minute.
Yep.
Social distancing, temperature check. They've got to do all that. And then the Coach Banks in the article talks about they're prepared to do that. But all of that in the best of plans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody talks about what happens if that happens.
Right. If somebody tests positive. Yep. How do you quarantine? Where do you quarantine? What's going to be safe? How are some of these dorms going to even help with the social distancing? There are so many things that come into play that is hard. Now, most places have June 1st as a deadline for students coming back. Has that been enough time for them to prepare? You know, I think it was around the 15th of the month where they said, well, come June the 1st, we're going to allow schools to start bringing their athletes back on campus. Is that 2-week period enough time?
No, I don't think so. In my personal opinion, now, Coach Banks said about July or later, bringing
back for July for what? For Southern.
Yeah.
Okay, so now if he brings his kids back, his athletes back in July.
Mm-hmm.
Is he not at a disadvantage for those programs in the SWAC that come back in June?
No, he would be behind the 8 ball. Yeah.
Right. Because I on the website I saw what Grambling said that they were going to open up June 1st, bringing people back. So other schools in the SWAC, I think it's going to be left up to each state, each community, and that's why I say I think it's not going to be fair for some of the schools. I tried to see what Valley was going to do. I tried to see what Pine Bluff was going to do. They don't have theirs posted yet as to what they're going to do because the SWAC they're trying to stay in line with the NC2A, and they're the ones that came out saying that they're going to start allowing institutions to bring the athletes back starting in June. So the SWAC is just trying to keep in line, but that's not to tell each institution that you must bring them back. That's going to be optional.
Visiting with Coach Van Pettaway, the Coles Brown Show's basketball analyst and also master teacher.
Oh, no.
And that just reminds me of this, Coach Pettaway. Looking at the news, Mississippi High School Athletic Association basically said, okay, let's go. It's time to get back. We're going to have football. Then I posted an article on my Facebook page in South Florida. There's a high school there that they've been doing some investigating. They've been doing some stuff that they weren't supposed to as far as practicing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So all that to say, and all that to say is on the high school level.
Right.
And I still, and again, you are entitled to your opinion, but I have people that every day, just about a little every day, they don't talk about the things that we're talking about now. To be able to put on athletics, they only thinking about, throwing that football, getting that touchdown. And I love sports like the next person, but why they don't see that it shouldn't be profit. Use that term loosely on our level. Profits over safety.
Right. But now, Carlos, think about this now. You're talking about high school athletes down in Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where were the parents? What were the parents thinking about? My high school son would not walk out of this house unless I know where he's going.
Amen.
Where are you going, son? Well, I'm going up to the practice. I said, what practice? There can't be any practice during this time.
Nope.
So see now.
You go in the backyard and run sprints.
Right. So now that coach, if he was doing that, he should be dealt with severely because he has put people's lives in jeopardy. But now the parents of those athletes, they got to accept some of the blame too now because they allowed their kids to do it.
Yeah.
If this is true now, if it's true. But I did see where they said they were just investigating it. And even here in the state of Alabama, for high school, they're allowing their athletes to come back this month.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And in the state of Louisiana, there have been some investigations allegedly going on with people not doing what they're supposed to do as far as practicing. Or,
right.
In this case, shouldn't be, but they've been doing it.
That to me, that's tough now, because we're not talking about somebody just coming up with a common cold. This thing could lead to death, and I don't see how you can put a kid in that situation. If I'm as a coach, there's no way I will risk the safety of my players or myself in this day and time. Money, my salary is not worth it. Trying to win a game is not worth their life. That's not, because on our level, we're not talking about money, major money anyway. Right. I mean, money should never come, when it comes to safety and health, money should never be an issue.
Can't put a price on that.
Right.
A listener says you don't have to go to Florida. The Louisiana High School Athletic Association is investigating 12 high schools for unofficial practice. And now people are saying, yep, Florida, Texas. Oh,
wow.
Different places.
Wow. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No. I was about to say, well, I guess we're going to find out later that some of these schools here in Alabama have probably been doing the same thing.
Yeah. and I kind of smirk about it, but it's a real tragic thing, because I know we live in a society that values sports and sports entertainment and all of that. But to your point, if it was up to me, we just would take a year off and try to get a handle, if I can say it that way, get a handle on this situation. And it may be 2 or 3 years before this thing will get to where you can be in a safety net or some sort of safety net. But they're going to go on, Coach. They're going to have football. They're going to have basketball. But again, there's no plan in the world that you can put forth to say if someone or several people get an outbreak on a team, that's going to shut it down.
But let me tell you something that I think is going to happen first, because the NFL and the NBA and perhaps Major League Baseball, if they can come to terms, I think if they get back in business first, I think that might help the collegiate people to see what they're doing and how they're doing it. That might help us, but at the same time, I think it'll help us in this sense. If one of those professional players goes out there and they get the virus, I think wisdom will fall into place for the collegiate people. God, He gave us our senses, but the biggest thing He gave us was wisdom. And I think that's what we need to use in this day and time, because if one of those NFL or NBA players was to resume their season and then somebody tests positive, I think that's going to shut us down again. And then we'll do what you're saying. Everything, we'll just forget everything for this season. Let's wait. Let's wait until we get a vaccination. Let's wait until we know what chemicals work when it comes to sanitizing. Because all of this right now is still unknown. We don't know what to use or how to use it, because everything's an experiment right now.
Mm-hmm. The unknown and uncertainties.
Yep.
A listener, Mike, says, could these decisions by the NCAA be the downfall of the NCAA? Because remember last week you talked about a while back.
Yep.
About maybe leaving the NCAA.
Correct. And I've always said that. I've always been a proponent to go back to where it used to be, where there's NAIA, NAIW, and all that. Now the HBCUs form their own league, their own conference. Make it a mega conference. Use SWAC, CIAA, MEAC, everybody, SIAC. Everybody just get together. Now you got like schools, like budgets. We're not dealing with the Power 5 people. So now the big disadvantages, they disappear because we all like situations. Now, I'm more worried about when it comes to this pandemic, the smaller schools. When I say small, I'm talking about with the smaller enrollment, like in the SWAC, where you got Valley, who doesn't have a large enrollment. You got Pine Bluff, doesn't have a large enrollment. And believe it or not, what people don't really know, Alabama State's enrollment went down. They're down now. So what's going to happen when
6,000?
Right? No. Alabama State ain't around no 6,000.
No, I'm saying Southern.
Oh, yeah, Southern, yeah. Right.
Well, the heyday was over 10,000.
Right. And see, some of the formula that they use in some of these schools is based on enrollment. When I say the formula they use for athletics, to get a portion of that money, that formula is based on attendance. How many people? Enrollment rather. And when the enrollment goes down, that means that the amount of money going to athletics, that's reduced. So that's why I'm saying that this is just the surface. We're going to see some things happen in athletics that we haven't seen for some years. We're going to drop programs. We don't have alumni rallying just like the UH Charger fans just did this past week. We got to have that every day for our schools to survive.
Wow, hockey.
Yep.
Well, they love their hockey, huh?
Yep, in the South.
Interesting. Yeah, all of our schools, you're right. My colleague said all of our schools.
Right.
It is going to be a situation where we'll have to, continue to monitor what's going on, and we just pray and then go to work, and hopefully that we'll be all right when the dust clears.
Right.
There are going to be some casualties. Not trying to be political, but who would have thought, if I'd asked Coach Pettaway, when this thing came out, this pandemic, this virus, 100,000 people, over 100,000 people would lose their lives.
Right.
Their life over there. Yeah.
And there's going to be many more, because you got to think about it. When they reopen these states, people, they lost their minds. They forgot about social distancing and everything else. And as you know, the rate of infections have gone up in a lot of the states that reopen, because people are not taking the necessary precautions.
Yeah. Well, isolation in the house. You may go out to get medicine or something like that, but you adjust.
Right.
If I want to be in the house and I want to run through here buck naked, I can do that. I'll get some exercise in. That's more to the extreme there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know that wouldn't be a nice sight outside. But but the point is, you have to do what you have to do to be safe.
Yep.
And I'm a little older. I have a compromised immune system. When I was 20, 21, 22, I could conquer the world. Nothing. Yep. I'll live forever. That's the mindset.
Yep, that's us. And that's these athletes now.
The older folks said, just keep living, son.
Yep.
Keep living. Time changes. And it brings on a change. So hopefully everybody's going to continue to stay safe. And these director of athletics in our conference, they had a tough job anyway.
Yep, it's even tougher now.
Yeah. And I've been talking to several of them on this show. And they talk first and foremost about safety first. The student athletes. And Coach Banks literally, and you'll be able to go back and listen to the interview. You can listen to the show right after it's over. He pretty much said economics is not the most important thing on his mind. Right. Because you're going to take a hit. Because our schools are going to take a hit. But we've always taken a hit.
Correct. But with this pandemic, it's going to take us 3 or 4 years to recover, though.
Yeah.
Because of the way we generate our money.
Yes,
so you don't have. We keep saying it, but you don't have the television revenue. you don't have the radio revenue. So, and then in some of our advertisers, they're gonna back off some because they can't continue giving us money when everything is shut down and they can't generate money. So it's gonna affect us, and then it'll be 2 or 3 years or 3 or 4 years down the road before we can recover from it.
Quickly, question for you. Mm-hmm. A listener says, ask Coach Pettaway, what was it like to follow Ben Jobe at Alabama A&M?
It was tough because Coach was a legend or is a legend, and he had that name, and there was a lot of responsibility. But when he left, we had 6 seniors that year that left with him. So they didn't expect us to win, but we did. I won 23 games my first year. And because
he set the bar right there, Coach.
Right. Well, I work with a great guy, with a great man, and he put me in a situation where I could be successful because he taught me so many things off the court that helped me on the court with the players and stuff. So it was tough trying to live up to Ben Jobe because he's been to so many places, and I even had the opportunity to come to Southern with him. But they gave me the job on an interim basis. And Coach Jobe said, if you think you can get it done, stay. And that's what I did.
Wow. Can I see Coach Pettaway? Oh, boy, I just had a vision. Can I see Coach Pettaway in Baton Rouge, Louisiana? All of the good food and the spices, Coach.
Yes, sir. My wife would have enjoyed it. She loves spicy food. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I tell you, boy, that you know what could have been.
Yep.
I'll think on that vision, and I'll have those thoughts to myself about what could have, should have, what would have happened.
Right. I always had the opportunity to come with him. Yep. But then I would have had I been with him, maybe Tommy wouldn't have been there.
Oh, Tommy Green, Coach Green, God rest his soul. Yeah, I have to tell you one day, I felt the wrath of Coach Green a couple of times. You know, when you do radio, I felt the wrath of, God rest his soul, Dr. Isaac Griggs. Oh, boy, it's hilarious now, but it wasn't at the time. You know, you get some of those guys after you, come after you. You know, you got to stand up and sometimes take a beating.
Yep.
But those were interesting personalities. Well, Coach, enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Okay.
And we appreciate you as always, and stay safe, you and the family, and we'll talk again real soon.
Okay, thank you. Everybody be safe, and God bless.
All right. That was Coach Van Pettaway, the Coles Brown Show's basketball analyst. Take a quick time out. Come back. Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. Let's see what his top 5 is going to be in his broadcasting career at Alcorn State. And now that makes me think of each school in this conference. Boy, they could put together their top 5, the fans, the supporters. Got a lot of history in this conference. Now, we're talking about basketball, but we can do football and baseball as well. I think each institution will be represented well. I really do. Take a time out. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show.
We'd like to take this time to recognize our sponsors and supporters at the Open Mic Broadcast Network: Brazos Valley Schools Credit Union, Temple of Refuge Ministries, Prairie View Athletic Club, Attorney Lee Van Richardson, Farmers Insurance of Hempstead, Texas, Diva Skin Conditioner, Helping Hands Lawn Service. Thank you for your support of our local and regional coverage of student athletics here at the Open Mic Broadcast Network.
The birth of legends are storied in this conference. We must never forget our rich history. We now turn our gaze to the future. The new legends will emerge. New heroes to arise. The Southwestern Athletic Conference. Be our history.
Drivers and bicyclists both have the right to be on the road and travel safely. And when we're on the road together, safety is a shared responsibility. State law requires drivers to maintain at least 3 feet of clearance when passing bicyclists. And bicyclists should always ride with the direction of traffic and follow all traffic signals. It's safer. It's courteous. It's the law. A message from the Regional Planning Commission Pedestrian and Bicycle Program.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show. Heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Last guest of the day's show, Charles Everett of the Alcorn State Radio Network. Good morning to you, Charles. Doing well, I'm assuming.
I'm doing okay. I'm kind of. Yeah.
I was worried there.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid a few sniffles here and there. Last few days, don't know what it is. Could be allergies, could be a whole bunch of stuff. So trying to fight that off. And other than that, I guess I'm doing okay. But the weather that we're in right now definitely changes.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with this situation now. If you had allergies before, you still have it, but now when those symptoms come on, you get to thinking, your mind gets to racing.
Oh, yeah.
And so I understand. I understand. A couple of weeks ago, almost maybe 3 weeks ago, a month, and I'll have to apologize, I gave you an assignment and didn't follow it up. And that's on me because we started getting off into different situations. But the assignment was in your broadcasting career, and you've been blessed. Some your top 5, I believe, players in basketball for Alcorn State. At least that's the way I thought I put it. Gave the assignment to you. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Now,
okay.
Now you're not a very good teacher, Carlos, because there's no way a student's going to remind a teacher about a test. If a teacher forgets the test, there will be no test. So, but a student will not remind the teacher, "Hey, did you have a test today?" So
I can't say it was homework assignment. Huh?
Yeah, homework assignment. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
good thing I'm not a teacher.
You want me to give my top 5?
Yeah, I'm interested in the top 5, and I think we'll throw it out to everybody. I mean, over the next few weeks, when the show is on, just you can just send it via text message or through Facebook Messenger. I'll be interested in see what you put down.
Well, let's start with number 5. I had to really think about it because, of course, the late Davey Whitney had some terrific teams. Mm-hmm. And Montez Robinson, who's no longer, of course, head coach, he had a pretty good run early in the season in his tenure. So I had to really go back and think about, some of the top teams that I've witnessed with my own 4 eyes since I've been there since 1991. And I'll start with number 5 and kind of work my way back. 2016-17 season, Montez Robinson was the coach at that time, and it was his second season. We were 13-5 in the conference. We won 18 games overall, and we lost 3 times to Texas Southern by an average of 4 points. And if there was one team that gave, and of course, TSU won the regular season and the tournament that year. If there was one team that gave TSU fits, it was Alcorn. And we lost to TSU 53-50 in the SWAC championship game. We had beat Southern in the tournament that year, and that was probably, you could say, one of the bigger shockers because we won 81-59. And I think Southern was on a pretty good winning streak that year, and we handled them. And I think that was a shock. And then for us to play TSU wire to wire and lose 53-50, we lost 2 or 3 times. All those games we probably should have won, including the last one. So that I would put that as number 5. We finished 18-14 that season. Number 4 would be the 2000s. Would be a year in which we went. We had another 13-5 season, and that was the year before. We went 15-15. That was under Montez Robinson as well. We had some pretty good out of conference wins. We beat Mercer, and that was a huge win. And then we started in conference. We started 3-3, and then all of a sudden we had a 5-game winning streak. And we lost to number 7 Mississippi Valley, 64-61. But I thought that season was a pretty good season. And remember, in the early Montez Robinson's tenure, we were on probation. We could not go to the NCAA tournament. So, to have the years that he had, considering we couldn't go to the postseason, I thought was pretty impressive. I would go with number 3, the 2000-2001 season. And that year, the late Davey Whitney was the coach. We were 15-15 overall. We were 13-5 in the conference. And we lost to the number 1 seed Texas Southern 95-74. We beat the number 8 seed Grambling. But that was a good season in which we really had some terrific talent that season. We started out 4-0 in the league, and I thought that was a really, really good season at that point. That was number 3. Number 2, I'll go to the 2001-2002 season. We finished 16-2 in conference. And there's an interesting story behind that season, Carlos. You talk about one of the biggest upsets involving 2 HBCU teams playing each other. Mm-hmm. That particular year, we went 16-2. We were rolling. We started out 8-0 in conference. And after we played Southern on that bye, we went to Atlanta and played Morris Brown. And I thought, the players thought that it was going to be a cakewalk. The gym was packed. The band was there. We were 8-0 in conference. We were rolling. And we lost 68-64 to Morris Brown. I thought, to this day, if you talk about 2 HBCU teams, I think for those who might remember that because we played Morris Brown home and home, we handled them at our place, but we lost to them at their place. I thought it was one of the biggest upsets in HBCU history in terms of 2 HBCU teams. So that's my number 2. My second best All-Corn team, 2001-2002 season, when we went 16-2 in conference, and we lost to Morris Brown. That just shocked the HBCU world that particular year. And then the number 1 team for me, the 1998-99 season, we went 23-7 that season. We beat SMU, and that I remember that in Dallas. That win got a lot of play all over the country for what we did that year when we played SMU. We started out 12-0 in conference. We lost to Southern 67-66 and didn't lose again until the NCAA tournament when we played Mark Madsen and Stanford in the West Regional out in Seattle. That was the best Braves team that I've seen in the almost 30 years I've been doing Braves basketball under a number of coaches. So that's my top 5. I mean, there's been a lot of great wins, some very disappointing losses, tough losses, but, as far as the teams go 1 through 5, the number 1, the best Braves team I saw was that 98-99 team in which we beat SMU, started out 12-0 and played Stanford tough. I mean, but, they pulled away a bunch of free throws. You know how it goes in games like that. So that's my top 5 in terms of the top 5 Braves basketball teams that I've seen.
That's interesting because wasn't it one year? I was listening. I thought maybe it was in the late 90s. Didn't Alcorn they lost to LSU in the tournament in the first round game?
That was before me. I don't.
Yeah, you did say that what you witnessed, but that might have been right, a little bit before you.
Yeah. I heard a lot about that particular game, and of course, the historic win over Mississippi State back in the late '70s, early '80s is one that Braves fans will be talking about forever. Going up to Starkville and beating Mississippi State, that had a lot of history behind that. That's well before me, and but some would say that was probably one of the best Braves teams ever. Larry Smith, and who's still working for the university and our foundation, played for that team. And to Braves fans, the Brave Nation, if you remember back then, if you were there, some would say that was probably one of the best Braves basketball teams ever that year that we beat Mississippi State. Historic in a lot of ways, going up to Starkville, playing an in-state team at their place, and pulling off that type of win still reverberates amongst the older Brave Nation today.
Yeah, someone said that was LSU's Final Four team. Thanks, Winhar, that defeated Alcorn. And just if you and that was an outstanding assignment that you gave us with Alcorn State. And you look
at an A, or is it an A plus or A minus? What is it?
I'm gonna give you an A.
Okay. I didn't get to
just that little shot about me not being a good teacher, that cost you some points. It's funny. Never argue with the instructor. I learned that. It could cost you in the long run. But interesting enough, I posted on my Facebook page. I believe it's under the Carlos Brown Show, all Carlos Brown. But local TV station, and Channel 9 has kind of been going, because there's no sports going on, pretty much, going into the archive. Steve Snyder, I'll mention his name, and he pulls up some of the footage that they've shot for over 30 years. And, boy, I see Bobby Fields. You can go on my Facebook page. Bobby, you remember Bobby Fields?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Carlos Sample, which I've had on the show before. But man, I said all this to say this: there have been some outstanding players in this conference over the years. Harry Machine Gun Kelly, Texas Southern. I mean, Grambling State has had some great teams. Southern, Prairie View. It's just been some talent in here, and sometimes I don't think we appreciate them enough. Some of the accomplishments and what the universities have done, in spite of having to fight many fights, some that they can control, some they can't. But there's been some great talent come through this conference.
And the one thing that I remember, and what people always tell me, what teams are going through now compared to back in the day, in which, riding luxury buses and all that didn't happen a lot of times back in the day. I remember even early in my early tenure at Alcorn, driving to Jackson State in 3 vans. I mean, just the creature comforts that we kind of expect now, that didn't happen then. Staying in hotels overnight, that didn't happen. A lot of the short trips were turnaround. So you had the talent. The resources were different, but it didn't really matter, because those teams, those players, those coaches, they just want to go out there and kick butt, and they did that. And I remember the big win, Southern over Georgia Tech. I mean, that reverberates with me to this day. I mean, how big was that, Carlos? When you look at all the biggest wins by SWAC teams in NCAA basketball history, you have to put that one at the top of the list, I would think, that went over Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and that year, Jackson State defeated Connecticut?
Yep, Jackson.
In the NIT.
Yep.
I'm thinking about Bobby Fields. I'm thinking about Frankie J. Sanders, the Green Boys, Pop, Tommy. So, God rest Tommy. So Pop is a minister now. I interviewed him a couple of years ago, and Pop Green, that's. You know why he was called that? Those nets were popping, man. And look, I think every school can talk about during those times. I mean, the F.G. Clark Activity Center, Charles, is a little different than now. Back then, you better get in there. It would be to the right. Avery Johnson.
Yep.
You know, going behind his back, through his legs. Pass to a guy falling 5 foot behind him. Yeah, Alfonso Ford. I mean, one
Lindsey
day,
Hunter.
and I had hair then. Yeah, Lindsey Hunter, but Ford, he what adjective could I put? I could say he was a baller. Yes, that was true. But I mean, physically, he was a man. And I mean, he had me just in tears one day. I mean, can't stop him, foul him, hold him. He got on one of those streaks.
Yeah.
Wow. Who's that? Yeah.
I mean, and even if you look at the rivalries back then, they were a lot more intense then, back in the day, than they are now when it comes to SWAC basketball. I mean, Alcorn, Jackson State, Alcorn, Southern Grambling, those rivalries back in the day were just intense. I remember someone told me a story back when we played in the old gym, Carlos, for the Whitney Arena. We played, I believe, we played Texas Southern in the old gym. And it was all-the-wall people. And we were up by 1 with like 8 seconds left. Texas Southern gets the ball, and the guy's wide open in the corner for a 3. And the way the story was told to me, the late baseball coach, Rat McGowan, was right by the guy, and he slapped his hand. Keep him from getting the shot off.
What?
I mean, just stuff like that. I mean, just unbelievable stories that,
wow.
That that you can go back, and I'm sure you know some you've heard some back in the day, with Ben Job, and just going all the way back, Grambling with Aaron James, AJ from the parking lot, the late Fred Hobley. I mean, there's just a lot of great talent in this conference, coaches, players, and just a lot of great stories with SWAC basketball.
Yeah, you remember Sylvester Norris?
Yes.
And some may disagree with what I'm about to say, but I know a rivalry is when you win some, you lose. You know, the teams go back and forth as far as wins. But right now, could there be an argument for Southern and Texas Southern and basketball? I know in football, Southern and Grambling, I've said Southern Jackson State, but in basketball, Southern and Texas. And could it possibly be in the future, Southern and Prairie View? An outstanding job. But I know Southern and Texas Southern, I mean, from even on the women's side, it's a lot of passion between those two schools.
I would say, and of course I'm not at those particular games, but just watching the other games on television, I would say Prairie View, Texas Southern basketball, that rivalry is still hot.
Of course. Mm-hmm.
Southern Grambling, I think that it's cooled off a little, but when those teams get together, especially at the Hobby Arena, it's intense. I've heard those stories. Alcorn, Jackson State, I mean, always drama there. I mean, just even this past season, we lost to them 3 times, and it was tough. But I think the rivalries are still there. Are they as heated as they once were? No. I think there's still rivalries. There's heated rivalries, and there's rivalries. And I think, there's a handful of heated rivalries now in SWAC basketball, but not nearly as much as it was back in the day, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, if you listen to some of the guys who were active at that time back then and just kind of listen to the stories, like Kevin Florent played at Southern University. A quarter was taped to the square on the glass above the goal. I heard he was able to jump and get it and bring it down. Urban legend, I don't know, but I'm just saying, it's some stories. But old Rat McGowan, huh?
Yep. No, nobody like Rat. Nobody.
Oh, I love him. Even after he chewed me out about Southern getting rid of Pete Richardson. Okay. On that note, Charles, have a great weekend. Excuse me, I got choked up. And be safe. We'll talk again next week.
All right, you guys be safe.
All righty. Want to thank Charles Edmond. Want to thank Coach Van Pettaway and Coach Roman Banks, Director of Athletics at Southern University, and Dr. Prince for producing today's show, and all of you who listen in and had a part in today's show. We appreciate you. Until next Saturday at 10 a.m. for another edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and as always, stay safe, peace, and God bless.